Ambassador to Malawi, Dr. Peter Vogt, ends his mission to the country in August this year. He has been in Malawi since 2011. He has shown that he is one of the few outspoken ambassadors this country has seen in the recent years. During his time in Malawi, his government funded an investigation into the theft of billions of public funds. In Insight today, he talks to me about that and his time in Malawi and his being outspoken. I'm your usual host of Insight, Teresa Temwikandanga. So Ambassador, thank you so much for having the time to talk to us and for being in Insight. You are coming towards the end of your mission here in Malawi since 2011. Could you first of all just give me a feeling of how it has been for you?
Teresa, it's a pleasure, first of all, let me say that, to be in your show and to inform you people on Insight a little bit on how I feel and what the experiences are. I must say we had 5 fabulous years privately. It was a wonderful time. I extended here my posting, and this tells you already something about that we liked Malawi very much. We had good private contacts. We had a good social life. So living in Malawi, these are 5 years that won't go away. That really will stay with us, and in particular with our children. When I arrived, all 3 children came with us. 2 finished school here, and so they were in their formative years. So for them, Malawi is the cornerstone of their young life.
Mm-hmm. And officially, how did you find it?
It has been a challenge. When I arrived, people at home told me, "Now you can relax. This will be a quiet African posting," and we had 3 presidents during that period of time. We really had a constitutional crisis in between. We had a financial crisis. So there was a challenge every day. It was quite an experience, and I would have hoped we would have achieved more in the 5 years. So we are very often repeating the same experiences and inventing the wheel again and again.
Right. I can imagine it was quite challenging indeed. One of the crucial issues that happened during your time in Malawi was the Cashgate issue of theft of public funds in huge amounts in government. Tell me about that and your decision later on in 2014 to stop providing direct budget support.
I have to correct you in one regard, that we stopped direct budget support. That was a decision already taken even before I arrived in Malawi. So for me, direct budget support is something I only know from the history books. And it was stopped in Malawi due to the human rights experiences in the latest months of Bingu Mutharika's government. So this was stopped for different reasons. But you're right, we have not been able to resume it afterwards, because then we saw that there's a financial crisis as well and a financial mismanagement. But at the same time, Cashgate is, that we know now, was just the tip of the iceberg, and there was more before and afterwards. So it is nothing where you can blame just one short period of government here in Malawi for. It is something which was ongoing for a longer period of time, and it only became obvious in that very moment.
Right. And talking about the years before, your government funded an investigation into some public funds that were stolen from some years back, and it was later known that 577 billion kwacha had been stolen even before Joyce Banda came into office. Tell me about that, the decision to kind of help Malawi investigate this huge financial scandal.
First, let me say I'm quite happy that not just the Joyce Banda government that initiated as well having an audit into the past, but that this was even pursued then with the following government, with the present government. So for us it is a sign and a symbol that the present government is as well interested in really cleaning up and clarifying what has been happening over the years. Then to the figure, I think we shouldn't focus so much on the figure. We now know, no, not everything has been stolen. There has been mismanagement, there has been chaos, there have been simple things we know by now, just that check numbers got mixed up. So it is not as bad, but it is bad. What we now know, and what is even worse, is that the procurement area is the biggest problem. We always have been talking about the public finance management, and I'm very happy that under Minister Gondwe now we have for the first time in many, many years what the experts call bank reconciliation. So that we know what is in the books is more or less identical with what we have when we look into the bank, what is really there, the real money. So money in the books is the same as the reality. That is new, that is fine. But procurement is the biggest challenge, I think, for the Malawi government, really to look into that and to see how to make it more transparent. And there's something to do.
So it is interesting that you say both the Joyce Band administration and the current Peter Mutharika administration are both committed to see that there is a cleanup of what happened before. But I'm wondering, because many people out there think that it's more of just investigation, and later on there's not much being done to follow up and prosecute those that may have been involved. What's your feeling on that?
There's quite room for improvement, I would say. Of course, I would agree with the majority of the people that at the moment not everything that could have been done has been done. But it's a process. For me, it was important to understand how the system works and worked in the past, because we don't want to put German taxpayers' money and money of which in the end is money of the Malawian people into the wrong people's pocket. Yeah? So this is why it was important to understand the system. Now it is with the national auditor and the Malawi institutions to do the follow-up. It's not the donors who can do all that, and it's not the donors who should do that. It's the Malawian people and the Malawian government who should do that. So I think these questions go to the National Auditor's Office.
Right, but what was your expectation after the release of that report, the one that you funded? What was your expectation afterwards? Was it just, well, government can act on it?
I think even in the months that followed the first part of this report and the first release, there has been a lot of further investigation going on, and this now has been handed over to the Malawian government, and it's in their hands, and they will handle it.
Mm-hmm. There was an incident, not so past ago, but there was an incident where some documents related to, we had reports that it was related to that particular investigation were stolen from one of your diplomats, one of your officers' house. Tell me about that, because you had reported it officially and had wanted the Malawi government to act upon it.
I think this showed that we are on the right track, that we are really pursuing something where some people are not interested in the uncovering of it. But let's say, okay, this was a break-in, it was a stupidity by the people who broke in, because who may think that I have important papers on my desk at home. These days you have it somewhere in an international cloud, but not as a piece of paper on the desk. For my colleague, it was, of course, personally a very threatening and bad experience that somebody breaks in your house, and I think many Malawians who have had similar experiences will really understand that this is, you breach your personal fear of trust and where you feel safe. So this is why, meanwhile, she left the country. But I think we should focus way more on the case of the murder of the ACP director. There we are still looking for the investigations come to a successful ending. And we hear, and I can only quote the newspaper reports, that many of the civil servants from the ACB are scared and are leaving the office. And this is where something needs to be done.
Right. Yeah, and 13 of them have so far resigned. And as you talk about that murder, it's 1 year now since Ihsan Jauju, the ACB director, one of the ACB directors, was murdered. And up to now, we do not have answers. What do you think of this particular delay? Two people were arrested. The courts are saying there's no file on it yet. The police are kind of not providing the much needed answers. What's your comment on that?
On this, I'm not any wiser than any other reader of the daily newspaper and listener to the radio. So I know that we, from the Western donors, raise the issue whenever we meet the government that it is important to pursue and follow up and clarify. More I can't do and say at the moment. And I do this the same as when I remind the authorities of the murder case of the student activist Joshua. Yeah. That is as well still pending, and this is now 4 years, I think, 4 years. Yeah, so these throw some shadow on a country which doesn't deserve these shadows, and so there are. In general, I'm quite pleased when I have to report back on Malawi that many human rights aspects are real. Malawi could be a role model. Or when I look at press freedom, the press could be better, but the press is quite courageous in asking questions. Sometimes I would wish that they do a little bit more proper double checking on facts, but nevertheless I wouldn't know any of the neighboring countries where we find such a free press, and as when I remember it correctly, Malawi is ranking amongst the top 10 in Africa.
When you compare, for example, Malawi and other, I know you have worked in other African countries, or where you come from, Germany, in terms of freedom in investigating corruption or fraud, and I'm still on the issue of, for example, the murder of the ACB director. How would you rate Malawi? Is it a place where corruption can be freely investigated or independently investigated?
Corruption in Malawi, unfortunately, is going through all layers of society, and I think when we have meetings with people like the Vice President, he even knows that, says that, and articulates it, and says we need to fight this. So we want to support people like him and others who are on the reform agenda in fighting corruption. But when everybody is part of it, it is of course very difficult. It's very easy to blame the men on the top for things that are going wrong if the society as a whole doesn't want to change. And I think it has to come from the society, only then it will be successful. We all know what happens at the many roadblocks, and I don't know any other. This is when you say, can you compare it to neighboring countries? I don't know any of the neighboring countries with so many roadblocks as Malawi. And of course I'm privileged. I'm welcomed and waved through. But the poor minibus driver, he's a target, and he has to pay 1,000 kwacha here and 1,000 kwacha there.
Right. Let's talk about the financial management system to which you referred to earlier on. Would you say now, since Malawi has been working on it for quite a couple of years now, would you say that you're confident in the system at this point?
At this very moment, we see a lot of positive signs. We really see, as I mentioned, this bank reconciliation, and maybe you should explain it to the listeners. Bank reconciliation is very much, everybody who has a bank account will know that he gets a statement once in a while and he wonders, oh gosh, did I really spend that much money? And then he double checks and says, oh, unfortunately, yes, I spent it. And only sometimes you discover something which may have been a wrong booking. But in general, yeah, it gives you a picture of the reality. But this is bank reconciliation. You check what you have on the paper with the reality. And this is now for the first time in, as far as I know, 10 years or even forever, that this has happened in Malawi. And this is a great achievement. And this is why the IMF was so confident in saying, okay, we consider Malawi being on track again. So, but it's the first step. There's many more to come. But it can't happen overnight. It's not a miracle that Minister Gombe can create it. It has to come step by step.
Right. So when you talk, for example, on IMF's decision, does that kind of give you confidence as donors that you can invest more in Malawi, that you can support Malawi even more than you're doing right now?
First, when I look at it from the perspective of all donors, they are all together giving Malawi almost the same amount for the last 5-6 years. It's every year about $1 billion US. $1 billion. It's an incredible amount for a small country. When I look at the German share of it, we even increased, we almost doubled our support in the last 4 or 5 years. So it is not what I read, donors have to come back with aid and so no, they are here, they are present, and they are contributing even more than before.
Mm-hmm. Any chance that donors will come back with direct budget support, you think?
I can't speak for others. From the German perspective, no, budget support is an instrument of the past. We are not playing it any longer. In particular, the environment in Malawi will be for quite a long time still be quite fragile. Mm-hmm. So no, this is not the environment where you can put direct budget support. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we even had to stop some of our basket funding. When we had the educational sector, all donors, or health sector, all donors together put the money in the basket, and then together with the government we decided how to distribute it. That we had to stop as well, and we are looking for new systems. And in the health sector we have as well established a parallel system controlled by auditors we have full trust in. And the important message with all of this is it's always in partnership with the government. We are not doing our own thing here in the country. We always try to link it with the interest of the government, their priorities and their national strategies.
Right. During your time, you have been quite one of the outspoken ambassadors, I would say. And this is kind of a departure from the diplomatic tradition we have always seen of ambassadors in Malawi. Would you want to talk to me about that, the difference in how you approached diplomacy?
First, I think diplomacy is moving as well. The modern diplomacy interacts way more than in the past with the media, and because we want to reach out to the people. Then I think you can only be credible if you're authentic. And I am like that. I am outspoken, and I try to control it a little bit, not to be too direct, but at the same time I think people understand that at least what I say is what I mean. And it's no longer these jokes that diplomats just mean the opposite of what they've been talking about. No. And look at my British colleague, he's as well pretty open, and you hear it from many others as well. I think there's a new generation of diplomats who have a different approach in this regard.
Right. One statement that you made really stands out for me, and this was in Leza not so long ago, where you said your government thinks donors are Father Christmas, and talk to me about that. It was quite a bold statement.
Look at the moment when I said that, and I remember it quite well. We just had a handover of a project in a health clinic, and we just invested a lot. And the first question I heard from the representative of the authorities was, give me more. It was not, how can we make most of it and how can we put on one kwacha invested by donors, another 2 local kwachas, and make it then something really successful. But the first question was, oh yeah, open my hands. And I think most Malawians don't themselves, they don't want to be seen as beggars. And we don't want to be seen as handing out money just for charity, but for improvement of development. And this means we have to do it together. And this was a moment when I said, oh no, come on. And I don't know what time of the year it was. Maybe it was. Was it in December? December. So this is why it came to my mind. We are not Father Christmas. Right. The message is, yes, this is, we can trigger something, but then please run yourself, and it's your show. It's not our show.
Right. And even broadly, right now Malawi is running on what we're calling a zero aid budget. Do you think that that's the direction we should really be looking towards?
The Minister of Finance already said there is nothing like a zero aid budget. It's nice for the media. It is in this country most of the infrastructure projects, when you look at roads, and most of the what's done in the health sector, what's happening in the education sector, it's all with support of donors. The zero aid budget is what if I understand the officials correctly, they mean zero direct budget assistance. That is true, but as I said before, there's even more money now available because we really want to get this country out of this cycle of poverty, what we see at the moment. And while we are discussing this, we have this shocking number of people really facing starvation. And we had a very good meeting recently with the government, a high-level forum, and it was focusing on breaking the cycle. And this breaking the cycle means getting out of this. Let's go back to figures. When I arrived, there were about 600,000 people in need, mostly in the south. Right. Last year we were talking about 2.9 million. This year we are talking about 6.5 million. Where should that lead? We have to break that. And poor people who cannot produce food, we saw it last year, couldn't produce food one year, couldn't produce it the next year. And if we let the same thing happen now again with 6 million who cannot produce food next year, what would we have in 2018? So this is what we call breaking the cycle of dependency, and empowering the people and getting them out of that.
Right. And just talking about the hunger situation, this year 6.5 million people face hunger. Is Germany coming in with any assistance?
We are focusing on this breaking the cycle, and that means we are not coming in with direct humanitarian assistance because this is a handout and then it evaporates. We are very strong and even increased our projects in school feeding projects to help the kids at school. So yes, we are of course helping the people who are hungry, but we want to do it in a way that it has lasting effects, that they, for example, go to school. This we try to do in many areas. Or when we, for example, at the youngest, we have this big stunting problem here in the country. And it is so important that we give them proper food the first 3-4 years, because otherwise they won't have a chance in their life if we don't reach them in the first years. So we are setting our priorities in a direction that, as much as possible, it has a lasting effect.
Let's cross the borders and talk about the EU. We just recently had a vote in the UK, and the UK decided that they will leave the EU. First of all, your reaction to Brexit?
Look, I went to bed that Thursday evening with absolutely being sure next morning the world would be the same as before. And when I woke up and switched the TV on, I couldn't believe what I saw. And I think this is what happened to most of us, and not only the professionals. It happens to the people on the ground. It happens to I think to even to many in the UK who voted in favour of the so-called Brexit. And I got phone calls. I got phone calls from my daughter who's living in the UK, totally panicking. And this is, I think we have to say, for the next 2 years, nothing changes. I think we have to bring some stability and into the system again and calm down. In the long run, it's a great loss that the United Kingdom is leaving the European project. I regret it very much, and we will miss in the long-term future our British colleague being part of our EU family.
Right. So clearly, if you look at the EU and Germany, the EU is a huge thing. It's a big thing for Germany. Does this worry Germany? The trend? Do you think that there will be a trend actually of having referendums and deciding whether or not a country would want to stay in the EU?
I think the developments of the last week shows everybody and every citizen that there's not just a great danger in leaving the European project, but that everybody would lose so much. And there were things we just took for granted. We thought and didn't think about that this is only the result of a 70 years peace process. When my parents in the 50s wanted to travel to France, they had to apply for a visa. And these days, we travel from Portugal to Warsaw without stopping once. So it's the same as if you would go from Windhoek to Lilongwe, and no border controls, no roadblocks. And this is such an achievement. I think people won't give it up.
And moving forward, what would you want as Germany with a part of the EU, a crucial part of the EU? What do you want to see now Britain is out? Do you want to see all the countries remain? People are still having the freedom to vote on what decision they will take?
We have some fundamental pillars the EU stands for and will stand for in the future. And the most important is the freedom of movement. Every European is allowed to move and to work in any other country of the European Union, and I think this is the most important pillar. And the rest will come with it, maybe some amendments, but I'm sure we will stand together and continue on our way.
So what does the Brexit mean for your working relationship with the British, for example, British High Commission in Malawi and the EU in Malawi?
At the moment, nothing. It's the same as before. It's the same, and of course, it's the same friendship, and it will be similar friendship afterwards, because we have good friends with many other countries who are not part of the EU, like Norway, the United States, Japan, all important donor countries, and we have almost every week we have coordination meetings. So Malawi is one of the places where the diplomatic community is standing very closely together. This is for me very impressive. Just this morning we had a meeting, heads of missions meeting, and there were as well the high commissioners from Zambia, from Mozambique there, and we have that on a monthly basis that we see each other and exchange positions. I would know very few countries we have this regular meetings, not only within our own group, but with the others together. And this is remarkable.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Voss, thank you so much.
No, it was a pleasure. Thanks very much.